From CRI Simple Numbers, this is Profitability Playbook, the Simple Numbers Podcast, a podcast for those championing market growth and anchoring the nation's economy, small businesses, and entrepreneurs.
Hey there. Welcome to another episode of the Simple Numbers Profitability Playbook Podcast. I'm Mike Maxon. That's Brandon Gray. Sorry.
Hey.
It's Monday. We're going to get going. We got a great topic for you today. I'm really looking forward to discussing. But first, we got to announce the winner of this Simple Start session that we are offering. So, Brandon, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, received a lot of entries, which was really cool to see. Hopefully, I guess based on the feedback that we've gotten so far, this is something we want to do in the future as well. So, stay tuned for additional giveaways and things that we can offer there. We put our tech hat on to draw the winner. So we used AI, took all the folks who had entered into AI and said, "Hey, give us a winner here." So the winner is Tyler Whitney, Mid-South Safety Services. So we'll be in touch with you to get the ball rolling on that. You won the free Simple Start. We'll tell you all about it, the data we need to get rolling with it. We'll get it scheduled for you. So be watching your inbox on LinkedIn, and we'll message you back and get things rolling. So excited, looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. Our first one.
I think I talked to him before once. He's
Really?
definitely a fan. Yeah. I talked to him a while back. He's definitely a fan. So that's pretty cool.
Neat.
Good for Tyler.
Yeah,
I appreciate everyone reaching out too. We had a good response from this, and it's nice to see that people are listening or hear that people are listening. Really.
Speaking of fans, so we had Dustin, who you guys don't get to talk to, but Dustin is the magician behind the scenes. He makes sure that we, have somewhat of an acceptable podcast that goes out to all the listeners, does all the editing and cleans it all up and what have you. Also coordinates with all the guests that we have on to make sure that they're set up. So Dustin was able to send us over some stats on the podcast last week, and it's growing. It's been really cool to see, just really in the last few months, the additional number of downloads and listeners and folks that are subscribing. So it's very, I just think it's fun and cool that we get to impact as many folks, entrepreneurs and what have you. So continue to spread the word. It's working. Keep telling people about it. If you got someone that you have lunch with or that you're in a group with, please mention the Simple Numbers Profitability Playbook podcast to them.
All right. That's our shameless plug.
There you go.
Well, awesome. Well, today we got a great topic. I'm looking forward to this one. So we're gonna talk large versus small, and listen, everyone's definition of that is different when it comes to company size. But we're gonna focus on companies 10 million and over versus those under 10 million, and sort of the differences we're seeing, some of the advantages and disadvantages of being in that spot. I think you're gonna hear some interesting stuff today, just simply because the dynamics are really shifting in the marketplace, and that seems to be a number. Now that is not to say you can't be profitable below that or anything like that. Nothing out there. Just some interesting dynamics taking place and more of the struggle. So I'll give you an example. For a lot of, for years we talked about the black hole, 1 to 5 million. That still exists, but inflation adjusted, right? Right, Brandon.
Definitely.
This is when you
to 2 to 7, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yes. And so you're seeing a different picture of the movement of that black hole. And what's really funny is, Brandon, we talk about TikTok, man, and I ain't gonna lie, my daughter got that. And so I'm like, okay, I got to be on TikTok too.
Yeah, no, I
got to be on. And so I get that. And they talk about, I got really into the cosmos stuff, man. They're talking about space and all this stuff. And they talk about these black holes like moving at ridiculous speeds across the universe, just sucking up planets and stars and whatever else. And now that's sort of like in business, this black hole is like shifted, it's moving. And, making it difficult for businesses now a little bit later on. Because when Greg wrote this book, was that 2009, 2010 time frame? Yeah. And if you look at what the cost of things were in 2008, 2009, and go look at what the cost of things are now. It's insane. Just from 2020 until now, you're looking at cumulative inflation is over 20%. So things are 20% more expensive than they were at the end of 2019. And so completely different dynamics right now in business. So, Brandon, you threw it out there. Kick us off.
So let me give all our listeners a little bit of background as to why we're having this conversation. A couple episodes ago, we gave an update on the 100 company model. And for those who may be new to the podcast, what our 100 company model is a group of 100 of our clients that we track across time. And it may change a little bit depending upon, data availability and what have you, but we go back and grab historical data, all the way back to like 2018, 2019, and look at that data all the way to current. I believe we're about to release the June numbers here in a week or so. So it's a really good data point as to what's taking place in the entrepreneurial economy. And as we were looking at it, the model was showing some things in terms of profitability, in terms of growth, that albeit weren't just astronomical leaps, but were a little bit different than maybe what our gut was telling us. So, we work with, I don't know, Mike, with 350 different businesses. And so
somewhere around there, yeah.
As you get on these calls and discuss things, you kind of, you have 25 calls in a week, you kind of develop this gut sense as to, well, what's everybody's thinking? What are we hearing? And so we're hearing and feeling one thing, but when we looked at the 100 company model, it's telling us a little bit of a different story. It's actually showing it to be better than what we were seeing and hearing on a lot of calls. And so one of our analysts, Brantley Keene, which, by the way, shout out to Brantley. You talk about a guy that is a professional and phenomenal at what he does. Brantley took a little bit more of a in-depth study of the model and segregated it into two buckets: those that had revenues of 10 million and above, and those that were 10 million and below. As we looked at some data that kind of lead us to believe it's likely 10 million and below, there's a little bit of a different story than if you're above 10 million. So he did that. We had a chance to kind of review it, go through it, discuss it as a team. And so we're going to discuss what that data is telling us and the why behind it, and then what do you do about it? So we'll kind of get started here at giving that context. We'll just work our way down that simple numbers P&L. So we'll start with revenue. For the companies that are 10 million and above, year over year change, so this is rolling 12 data through the end of May, year over year change, they're up 13% in top line. Now, you guys have heard us say it 1,000 times. Revenue is vanity. You can have all the revenue in the world, and what matters is margin or profit dollars. But they're up 13% in top line, whereas the companies below 10 million. Mike, take a gander. How much growth do you think you're seeing?
I would say, from my experience, the clients I work with, there's got to be a lot of flat sales growth.
Less than 1% growth.
Oh, wow. There we go.
Companies under 10 million, less than 1%. And so you see right off the bat, just in terms of volume dollars, what the output and what they're moving, pretty stark difference. We have set that growth target at 10%. 10% growth in top line will generally outrun inflation, allow you to generate a little bit of capital, reinvest back into the business, do some good things. And so that's kind of what we've seen as a benchmark. But that was the one of the numbers that just really jumped off the page. 13% growth versus below 1%. And if you're growing by less than 10, especially less than 5, you're going to be challenged to increase profitability just because of inflation. So that's kind of the first one there. Now, you move on down, the true top line of any business, as we like to say, is what we call gross margin. And we define gross margin a little bit differently than the accounting textbook would. We're going to define gross margin as revenue less your non-labor direct cost. We do not include labor in this calculation. It's a big difference there. Reason being is we want to analyze and be able to look at return on labor. We've got much more control over it, many other reasons, but nonetheless, when you look at that one, the companies that were above 10 million in revenue Guess how much they were growing their gross margin, Mike?
Well, okay, so I'm not looking at this.
Yeah, this is gross margin dollars, not percentage, because you can't spend a percentage.
Yeah, I'm gonna say if the census group is working for with us and we harp on gross margin a lot, I'm not saying they can't be down, but I'm just saying that they probably are working to try to keep it relatively stable. So they probably still increase gross margin dollars.
Yeah, those above 10 million increased it by 12%. They grew top line by 13, increased gross margin by 12. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Did not see a substantial, the thing a lot of times you'll see there is a disconnection to where folks increase top line, but not as much of an increase in gross margin dollars because they start discounting those kind of things. But they kept it pretty honest. For those that were below 10 million, gross margin grew by 2%. So a little bit better than revenue growth. You got a little bit perhaps sharper when it came to some purchasing, maybe increased pricing slightly, some of those things. But once again, 2% in the current marketplace is just not enough movement to outpace inflation. So let's kind of talk about those two a little bit more now that we've unveiled the numbers behind them. In terms of growth, what do you see, Mike, that allow larger companies to grow those gross margin dollars better at a higher rate than what maybe the below $10 million companies can?
Well, their market share probably gives them a little bit of pricing power, and they probably have a sales and marketing engine that that can support that sales growth different than small businesses can.
Definitely. You kind of reach that above 10 million. And another reason why we looked at the 10 million and above is that your team structure typically changes whenever you get to 10 and above. And what we mean by that is that, and we'll credit Alan Pence for this, because for those of you that have, Alan's been on the podcast, he spoke to our Simple Numbers community as well, a longtime client. Alan brought out a really great point around as he studied his company's growth and his team's growth, and that the team that gets you to 10 million is typically not the same team that gets you past 10 million. And the ceiling, the experience level, the expertise, the specialization that many folks can then have at 10 million really starts to show itself. So you think about sales and marketing. You would expect the sales and marketing, and we're kind of lumping them together here, the sales and marketing systems, processes, procedures, training, skill sets, they're a little bit different for a company that's above 10 million versus one that's below. Not to say it's bad below 10, it's just different. And so you typically have a little bit more horsepower. Same thing on the marketing side. When you're a little bit larger, as Mike mentioned, you can have a little bit better market share in a lot of cases. You also have more dollars to spend on business development and marketing. So I think that's
when you do have more market share, when your name is known, a price increase isn't as, how do I say this, shoppable. And so what I mean is, like, for example, I have Verizon phone, okay? And they are going to raise their price. They are. And I'm not apt to really shop it unless it's just so astronomical. So you just have such a nice piece of what you're doing that a lot of times you're known, you have a better reputation, you've established a better reputation, maybe in your area, in your market, in your community, whatever it is. And so, hey, your pricing goes up your low. But if you're the small guy over here, that's like 1 million, 1.5 million, 2 million in revenue, and you up your price, someone might say, oh, hey, well, that guy, I mean, he's only been around a little bit, and I'll go with the guy over here that, Jim, Bob, and Steve have, because they work with him, right? I mean, it's if they're going to raise my price, I might as well go over to Verizon. Why not? And so that's sort of some of the issues you run into there too, with when you're a little bit bigger, because of that market share you take, you can maybe get some price increases. You can do some stuff like that because your reputation sort of has you backed that, hey, yeah, I've increased my price and I've done well and I've established myself.
And I would say too, as you kind of look at the horsepower that those companies have that are larger, you can still, even though you're smaller, You may not can do it on a full-time ongoing basis, but you can still access that. So a great example, when it comes to whether it's sales coaching, CRO types of support and what have you, you can get that fractional, just like you can marketing or consulting or what have you there. And so the play we see that the folks that are able to kind of break through that are, below that $10 million mark is, hey, I'm struggling on the sales front. I might engage a sales training, a sales expert or what have you for 4 or 5 months. Now, the $10 million company likely has them on payroll 12 months, right? But I can engage them to get me over the hump. It's kind of this blended tap the subject matter expert and then DIY it. And then that lasts you a year or 2 years. And then you go and you tap them again and then you DIY it. And so it can definitely work. So don't think, oh, well, they're just bigger. They have more resources. I can't play the game. Yet you can still play it. You just got to tap it fractionally. So versus ongoing. And that, in all honesty, is probably a more efficient approach. Because, we've had clients that are $15-20 million and they'll go, I'm going to hire a CRO. Well, the first 6 months usually goes really well. And then after 6 months, the CRO is going, what do I do next?
Yep.
So that is an approach to kind of think about ways that I can stay nimble and I can still access expertise without being burdened with it full time. All right. So that's on sales and gross margin. Let's talk labor efficiency a little bit here. This one surprised me, but the total LER was pretty much exactly the same between both data sets. It was at $1.90. Whether you were below 10 or you were above 10, it was the same labor efficiency.
They do work with us, man. Give us some credit here that we push that stuff. I mean, I'm with you, but at the same time, it does tell us some good points. But man, we are on it with that. But I will say this though, it does speak to what are the things you have to do and what plays they're running. I tell all my clients when I talk this 100 company model and I've looked at that total labor is you can see in any aspect with our companies that are growing or as our company is falling, everybody is trying to leverage that labor dollar. And this is no different when you're looking at our overall 100 company model and it's broken into who's growing and who's not. They're all trying to leverage it. That is a play right now in the market that is happening, that people are not trying to overextend themselves on their hiring. That's the way it is right now.
Well, it gets back to what you said earlier about control things that are in your control. Every one of us controls our labor spend. Yep. I mean, I have a lot of control. There's much control over market share, those types of things, but I can watch and I can adjust and I can stay nimble and I can have targets and manage to them. So, good job there for both sides. I always want to continue to push it up, but nonetheless, both kind of right there with each other. The next one I think is another one of those little nuggets that was not surprised by, makes perfect sense as you look at the difference between the two size companies. If you're 10 million and above, your total operating expenses. So this is going to include facilities, marketing, management, overhead labor, tax benefits, and then the other OPEX catch-all bucket. Okay. If you were 10 million and above, that was 49% of your margin. Okay. If you were below 10 million, it was 56%. And that's what I expect. I didn't expect those numbers per se, but I expected there to be a gap. Once again, you look at those types of costs, dues and subscriptions, whether you're 5 million or you're 10 million, they're going to be about the same. A lot of the office expenses are going to be about the same. Sure, you might have more in facilities if you're larger and have a fleet or what have you there. But generally speaking, there's not going to be a massive difference. When it comes to the overhead labor, there can be a little bit of a difference in overall spend, but you kind of think about, hey, I need one CEO when I'm 5 or 7 million. I need one CEO when I'm 12 million, so you can leverage some of those spends a little bit more as far as that part goes. So I was not surprised that when we initially looked at the data, I thought, okay, you're going to see a gap here. And that's exactly what happened. It just goes to prove the larger you are, it kind of can cut both ways. I can either scale those expenses much easier, or I can fall into the trap of allowing creep to happen. We're doing well. let's add an extra admin person, or we're doing well. Sure. Let's take 2 more trips this year, or we're doing well. That creep can definitely come in. I would say right now, most folks are being judicious when it comes to overhead spending or watching it really closely. But yeah, the larger you are, the more you're going to be able to leverage those expenses. So Mike, any thoughts on those?
No, I think that with the obviously inflation existing and being there, I think a lot of businesses did not, wanted to what we would call scale your expenses. They did not want to just, hey, I'm going to dump a bunch of money into my expenses and expect growth.
Mm-hmm.
So what they did was they sort of began to try to level them out or get them in line with their growth, not to overextend themselves there. Because again, if you've heard us talk about inflation on here a million times, pull up the Wall Street Journal at any moment, they're still talking about it. I mean, so everybody was aware that they had to do something, and your expenses were obviously what it is. Hey, you're in anything in real estate, you probably have seen rents or whatever go up. If you're in, you're just office supplies, like Brandon mentioned. Yeah. Oh, the costs are going up. Software. Yeah. Travel. I mean, so it's not surprising that everybody really tried to get those in line with where the business is at.
So profitability, you look at the companies that are above 10 million, this is going to be profit as a percentage of gross margin. Once again, because everybody has a different gross margin signature, apples to apples, you look at gross margin dollars. 15% is healthy. All right. We want to be at least at 15. If we can get to 20, we're doing pretty good. We're below 15. We might start having some challenges when it comes to cash flow. Above 10 million, 17% of margin in terms of profit. Not bad. Now, we'd love to see it at 20. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. You go back in time to pre-2022 and, you're going to see perhaps that even in this case, you go back to 2023 and these companies were closer to 18, 19%. For those that are below 10 million, profit was 12% of gross margin. So, you kind of look at it, stagnant growth, not as easy to leverage the overhead expenses. The only place it can come from is profitability. So below the 15% target, those companies were at 12.
But a little higher than last year, right?
So last year, but last year they were at 11. So we did move it up. The year before we're at 13. Mm-hmm. So, and that's another data point that's kind of interesting is as you look at, have we kind of settled in? Have we seen the bottom? I think we're at bottom. And we're having periods to where it may slightly bump, come back, slightly bump and come back until, we talk about this a lot, until we see tariffs and interest rates get some resolution. I think we're going to stay kind of bouncing around. The good news is we're not continuing to see the decline. It's just not flat as far as that part goes. So that's kind of the difference between the two. Capital was basically the same when you look at the amount of core capital on hand. Once again, like to think maybe we've influenced people a little bit there, but nonetheless, they were about the same. So, kind of takeaways as you're looking at this and kind of going, okay, the bigger guys right now are doing better. I'm not one of the larger guys. What do I do? How can I kind of break this, this 12% mark that a lot of companies are running at? And so the biggest lever that we see with those businesses right now and that stands out is I got to stay focused on gross margin dollar growth. Mm-hmm. Keep in mind, this group as a whole is only up 2%. And so what can we do to drive gross margin dollars? So one angle of that is, am I able to lower my direct cost? And I would tell you that's worth looking at, shop vendors, shop suppliers, but there's usually not a ton of wiggle room there. So I have to be very creative. I've got to drill into my business and look at what services or products give me the greatest gross margin dollars. What gives me the greatest labor efficiency with those? How do I leverage them? What can we do to push them? Maybe I do engage an SME when it comes to the sales and marketing side on a temporary basis to kind of get me over the hump. The biggest advantage that the smaller companies have is they are much more nimble. And I know this gets talked about a lot, but, we see it play out with our clients in terms of, most likely you're below 10 million. Your leadership team, the CEO and maybe the VP level folks, there's only a handful of people. You get in a room and in 2 hours, you've worked something out and the next day you launch it. I mean, it rolls. Versus when you're 15, 20, 25 million, I've got 10 people to coordinate with. It takes 2 or 3 weeks just to get the meeting on the calendar. We leave the meeting with follow-up items. A month later, we meet. We finally reach a resolution that gets deployed. We're 3 months from whenever the other folks made the shift. And that, it's just kind of that the size of that organization, it takes much longer in many cases. And so when you're small, be nimble, engage those resources on a fractional basis. Another thing that many times is to your advantage is you can have closer contact and more frequent contact with your customer base. They know you. Many times you as the CEO/owner, you made the sale. So what you can be right on the cutting edge of, well, what is the market needing? Where's it going? Where's it shifting to? So spend some time, spend a few dollars having some nice dinners with your clients and customers and really determine where we're at. Now, not to say you can't do that when you're larger. It's just a little bit different. There's many more salespeople involved, moves a little bit slower and what have you, but use that size to your advantage. If you're larger, stay on the gas. Now's the time to where you have a little bit more profitability than some, maybe your smaller competitors. You can increase your game on the sales and marketing front. You can gain some market share. You might even can expand geographically or add different services and products. So I'm looking to play a little bit more offense if I'm on that side of the house, because I got the momentum that some of the others don't have.
Yeah, I think the key word for me as a takeaway is leverage. You see people, both views of that data, leveraging labor, leveraging their expenses, not overextending themselves. They're not going, oh my gosh, I'm guaranteed this growth in the next 3 to 6 months. Mm-hmm. They're watching it carefully and strategically moving. Hey, am I adding, like Brendan said, more margin? Am I bringing that up? How is my revenue related to that? Does it justify a labor person at this point? Have I checked my processes, procedures, pricing, all that stuff? Then I'm making the call. They're not what you would call catalytic spending, meaning, hey, if I add everything first, if I add labor and OpEx first, right? If you build it, they will come kind of thing. They're letting the market then say, hey, go ahead and add labor now by giving you something. So I think for me, the keyword is leveraging. Both views of that data is about leveraging what's going on in the market.
Yeah, and to that point, Mike, it kind of goes without saying, but keep in mind, you've got to be really quick on the eject button whenever you're below 10 million. You kind of just look at the percentage. If I'm adding $100,000 of labor and I'm below 10 million, that's a much higher percentage of my spend than it is if I'm 20 million. Just basic math, right? So the time that I have to hit the eject button if it's not working is about half. So I got to be really good, especially in the current marketplace, to where I'm not growing very quickly. If that person's not going to be a catalyst, I've got to make a very quick change.
Yeah, excellent. Well, great way to end it. Well, that was a good one. I enjoyed that.
I love looking at the data and kind of seeing what's going on. And hey, I don't know anywhere else you're going to be able to get a breakdown of 10 million and above revenue companies versus 10 million and below revenue companies.
Yeah.
So, worth sharing. Yep.
Absolutely. Well, all right. Well, we will be back most likely in a week and be talking again. So we're looking forward to it. For Brandon, I'm Mike. Yeah, we do.
We got some guests lined up. So.
Yes, we do.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you all later. Have a good one.
See you guys.
If you want to know more about driving sustainable profitability for your business or are interested in learning more about CRI Simple Numbers, please visit our website at simplenumberscri.com. Thanks for listening to this episode of Profitability Playbook, the Simple Numbers Podcast. You can subscribe to Profitability Playbook on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts. If you like what you heard today, please leave us a review. This podcast is brought to you by CRI Simple Numbers LLC, a division of CRI Capital Group LLC, and a subsidiary of CRI Advisors LLC. CRI is the trusted brand under which Carr, Riggs & Ingram LLC, the CPA firm, and CRI Advisors LLC, along with its subsidiaries, deliver professional services. Please note, Carr, Riggs & Ingram LLC is a licensed independent CPA firm offering attest services, whereas CRI Advisors LLC and its subsidiaries specialize in providing tax and business consulting services. These entities operate within an alternative practice structure as defined by the AICPA Code of Professional Conduct and comply fully with applicable laws, regulations, and professional standards. Ready to simplify your business finances and drive growth? Explore valuable resources, books, and tools designed for entrepreneurs and small businesses at simplenumberscri.com.